Credit score. A credit score is a numerical expression based on a level analysis of a person's credit files, to represent the creditworthiness of an individual. A credit score is primarily based on a credit report, information typically sourced from credit bureaus. Lenders, such as banks and credit card companies, use credit scores to evaluate the potential risk posed by lending money to consumers and to mitigate losses due to bad debt. Lenders use credit scores to determine who qualifies for a loan, at what interest rate, and what credit limits. Lenders also use credit scores to determine which customers are likely to bring in the most revenue. The use of credit or identity scoring prior to authorizing access or granting credit is an implementation of a trusted system. Credit scoring is not limited to banks. Other organizations, such as mobile phone companies, insurance companies, landlords, and government departments employ the same techniques. Digital finance companies such as online lenders also use alternative data sources to calculate the creditworthiness of borrowers. By country. Australia. In Australia, credit scoring is widely accepted as the primary method of assessing creditworthiness. Credit scoring is used not only to determine whether credit should be approved to an applicant, but for credit scoring in the setting of credit limits on credit or store cards, in behavioral modeling such as collections scoring, and also in the pre-approval of additional credit to a company's existing client base. Although logistic, or nonlinear, probability modeling is still the most popular means by which to develop scorecards, various other methods offer powerful alternatives, including Mars, CART, Shade, and random forests. Prior to the 12th of March 2014, Veda Advantage, the main provider of credit file data, provided only a negative credit reporting system containing information on applications for credit and adverse listings indicating a default under a credit contract. Veda was acquired by Equifax in February 2016, making Equifax the largest credit agency in Australia. With the subsequent introduction of positive reporting, lending companies have begun an uptake of its usage, with some implementing risk-based pricing to set lending rates. Austria. In Austria, credit scoring is done as a blacklist. Consumers who did not pay bills end up on the blacklists that are held by different credit bureaus. Having an entry on the blacklist may result in the denial of contracts. Certain enterprises including telecom carriers use the list on a regular basis. Banks also use these lists, but rather inquire about security and income when considering loans. Beside these lists, several agencies and credit bureaus provide credit scoring of consumers. According to the Austrian Data Protection Act, consumers must opt in for the use of their private data for any purpose. Consumers can also withhold permission to use the data later, making illegal any further distribution or use of the collected data. Consumers also have the right to receive a free copy of all data held by credit bureaus once a year. Wrong or unlawfully collected data must be deleted or corrected. Brazil. Credit scoring is relatively new in Brazil. Previously, credit reporting was done as a blacklist and each lender used to assess potential borrowers on their own criteria. Nowadays, the system of credit reports and scores in Brazil is very similar to that in the United States. A credit score is a number based on a statistical analysis of a person's credit information, which represents the creditworthiness of that person. It is the most important tool used by financial institutions during a credit analysis that aims to assist the decision-making process of granting credit and conducting business, in order to verify the likelihood that people will pay their bills. A credit score is primarily based on credit report information, typically from one of the three major credit bureaus, Serasa Experian, Boa Vista, previously Equifax do Brasil, and SPC Brazil. There are different methods of calculating credit scores in Brazil. In general, scores range from 0 to 1000, indicating what is the chance of a certain profile of consumers paying their bills on time in the next 12 months. The score is calculated from several factors, but practically it analyzes a person's trajectory as a consumer, what includes up-to-date payments of bills, history of negative debts, financial relationships with companies and updated personal data on credit protection agencies, such as Serasa, Experian, Boa Vista, SPC, Quad and Foregone. Canada. The system of credit reports and scores in Canada is very similar to that in the United States and India, with two of the same reporting agencies active in the country, Equifax and TransUnion. Experian, which entered the Canadian market with the purchase of Northern Credit Bureaus in 2008, announced the closing of its Canadian operations as of the 18th of April 2009. There are, however, some key differences. One is that, unlike in the United States, where a consumer is allowed only one free copy of their credit report a year, in Canada, the consumer may order a free copy of their credit report any number of times in a year, as long as the request is made in writing, and as long as the consumer asks for a printed copy to be delivered by mail. Borrowwell and Credit Karma offers free credit report and credit check, and this request by the consumer is noted in the credit report as a soft inquiry, so it has no effect on their credit score. According to Equifax's Score Power Report, Equifax Beacon scores range from 300 to 900. TransUnion Empirica scores also range from 300 and 900. The Government of Canada offers a free publication called Understanding Your Credit Report and Credit Score. This publication provides sample credit report and credit score documents, with explanations of the notations and codes that are used. It also contains general information on how to build or improve credit history, and how to check for signs that identity theft has occurred. The publication is available online at the Financial Consumer Agency of Canada. Paper copies can also be ordered at no charge for residents of Canada. China. Private companies have developed credit score systems. These systems include Sesame Credit, which is provided by Alibaba Affiliate and Financial, and Tencent Credit. Part of the government's social credit system uses credit information about citizens. Denmark. The credit scoring is widely used in Denmark by the banks and a number of private companies within telco and others. The credit scoring is split in two. For privates, the credit scoring is always made by the creditor. For businesses it is either made by the creditor or by a third party. There are a few companies who have specialized in developing credit scorecards in Denmark. The credit scorecards in Denmark are mainly based on information provided by the applicant and publicly available data. It is very restricted by legislation compared to its neighboring countries. Germany. In Germany, credit scoring is widely accepted as the primary method of assessing creditworthiness. Credit scoring is used not only to determine whether credit should be approved to an applicant, but for credit scoring in the setting of credit limits on credit or store cards, in behavioral modeling such as collections scoring, and also in the pre-approval of additional credit to a company's existing client base. Consumers have the right to receive a free copy of all data held by credit bureaus once a year. At present, Schufa, the main provider of credit file data, provides scores for about 3/4 of the German population. India. In India, there are 4 credit information companies licensed by Reserve Bank of India. The Credit Information Bureau, India, Limited, CIBIL, has functioned as a credit information company from January 2001. Subsequently, in 2010, Experian, Equifax and CRIF Highmark were given licenses by Reserve Bank of India to operate as credit information companies in India. Although all the 4 credit information companies have developed their individual credit scores, the most popular is CIBIL Credit Score. The CIBIL Credit Score is a 3-digit number that represents a summary of individuals' credit history and credit rating. This score ranges from 300 to 900, with 900 being the best score. Individuals with no credit history will have a score of -1. If the credit history is less than 6 months, the score will be 0. CIBIL Credit Score takes time to build up, and usually it takes between 18 and 36 months or more of credit usage to obtain a satisfactory credit score. Norway. In Norway, credit scoring services are provided by 3 credit scoring agencies, Dun & Bradstreet, Experian, and Lindorff Decision. Credit scoring is based on publicly available information such as demographic data, tax returns, taxable income and any betalings and mourning, non-payment records, that might be registered on the credit-scored individual. Upon being scored, an individual will receive a notice, written or by email, from the scoring agency stating who performed the credit score as well as any information provided in the score. In addition, many credit institutions use custom scorecards based on any number of parameters. Credit scores range between 300 and 999. South Africa. Credit scoring is used throughout the credit industry in South Africa, with the likes of banks, micro-lenders, clothing retailers, furniture retailers, specialized lenders and insurers all using credit scores. Currently all 4 retail credit bureaux offer credit bureau scores. The data stored by the credit bureaus include both positive and negative data, increasing the predictive power of the individual scores. TransUnion, formerly ITC, offer the Empirica score which is, as of mid-2010, in its 4th generation. The Empirica score is segmented into 2 suites, the Account Origination, AO, and Account Management, AM. Experian South Africa likewise has a Delphi credit score with their 4th generation about to be released, late 2010. In 2011, Compuscan released CompuScore ABC, a scoring suite which predicts the probability of customer default throughout the credit life cycle. 6 years later, Compuscan introduced CompuScore PSY, a 3-digit psychometric-based credit bureau score used by lenders to make informed lending decisions on thin files or marginal declines. Sri Lanka. According to the provisions of Credit Information Bureau Act No. 18 of 1990, as amended by Act No. 42 of 2008, CRIB has been delegated with power to issue credit reports to any subject to whom that information is related to. The Bureau commenced to issue self-inquiry credit reports in December 2009. Sweden. Sweden has a system for credit scoring that aims to find people with a history of neglect to pay bills or, most commonly, taxes. Anyone who does not pay their debts on time, and fails to make payments after a reminder, will have their case forwarded to the Swedish Enforcement Authority, which is a national authority for collecting debts. The mere appearance of a company, or government office, as a debtor to this authority will result in a record among private credit bureaus. However, this does not apply to individuals as debtors. This record is called a betalingsaanmarking, non-payment record, and by law can be stored for 3 years for an individual and 5 years for a company. This kind of non-payment record will make it very difficult to get a loan, rent an apartment, get telephone subscriptions, rent a car or get a job where you handle cash. The banks also use income and asset figures in connection with loan assessments. If a person gets an injunction to pay issued by the enforcement authority, it is possible to dispute it. Then the party requesting the payment must show its correctness in district court. Failure to dispute is seen as admitting the debt. If the debtor loses the court trial, costs for the trial are added to the debt. Taxes and authority fees must always be paid on demand unless payment has already been made. Every person with the Swedish national identification number must register a valid address, even if living abroad, since sent letters are considered to have been delivered to that person once they reach the registered address. As an example, Swedish astronaut Christer Fuglesang got a betalingsaanmarkning since a car he had ordered, and therefore owned, passed a toll station for the Stockholm congestion tax. At the time, he was living in the USA training for his first space shuttle mission and had an old invalid address registered for the car. Letters with payment requests did not reach him on time. The case was appealed and retracted, but the non-payment record remained for 3 years since it could not be retracted according to the law. United Kingdom. Credit scoring in the United Kingdom is very different to that of the United States and other nations. There is no such thing as a universal credit score or credit rating in the UK. Each lender will assess potential borrowers on their own criteria, and these algorithms are effectively trade secrets. Credit scores which are available for individuals to see and provided from credit reference agencies such as Call Credit, Equifax, Experian and TransUnion are marketed to consumers and are not usually used by lenders. Most lenders instead use their own internal scoring mechanism. The most popular statistical technique used is logistic regression to predict a binary outcome, bad debt or no bad debt. Some banks also build regression models that predict the amount of bad debt a customer may incur. Typically this is much harder to predict, and most banks focus only on the binary outcome. Credit scoring is closely regulated only by the Financial Conduct Authority when used for the purposes of the advanced approach to capital adequacy under Basel II regulations. Credit scoring is closely regulated in the UK, with the industry regulator being the Information Commissioner's Office, ICO. Consumers can also send complaints to the Financial Ombudsman Service if they experience problems with any credit reference agency. It is very difficult for a consumer to know in advance whether they have a high enough credit score to be accepted for credit with a given lender. This situation is due to the complexity and structure of credit scoring, which differs from one lender to another. Lenders need not reveal their credit score head, nor need they reveal the minimum credit score required for the applicant to be accepted, because there may not be such a minimum score. If the applicant is declined for credit, the lender is not obliged to reveal the exact reason why. However, industry associations including the Finance and Leasing Association oblige their members to provide a satisfactory reason. Credit bureau data sharing agreements also require that an applicant declined based on credit bureau data is told that this is the reason and the address of the credit bureau must be provided. United States. In the United States, a credit score is a number based on a statistical analysis of a person's credit files, that in theory represents the creditworthiness of that person, which is the likelihood that people will pay their bills. A credit score is primarily based on credit report information, typically from one of the three major credit bureaus, Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. Income and employment history, or lack thereof, are not considered by the major credit bureaus when calculating credit scores. There are different methods of calculating credit scores. Fico scores, the most widely used type of credit score, is a credit score developed by Fico, previously known as Fair Isaac Corporation. As of 2018, there are currently 29 different versions of Fico scores in use in the United States. Some of these versions are industry-specific scores, that is, scores produced for particular market segments, including automotive lending and bank card, credit card, lending. Industry-specific Fico scores produced for automotive lending are formulated differently than Fico scores produced for bank card lending. Nearly every consumer will have different Fico scores depending upon which type of Fico score is ordered by a lender. For example, a consumer with several paid-in-full car loans but no reported credit card payment history will generally score better on a Fico Automotive Enhanced Score than on a Fico Bank Card Enhanced Score. Fico also produces several general-purpose scores which are not tailored to any particular industry. Industry-specific Fico scores range from 250 to 900, whereas general-purpose scores range from 300 to 850. Fico scores are used by many mortgage lenders that use a risk-based system to determine the possibility that the borrower may default on financial obligations to the mortgage lender. For most mortgages originated in the United States, 3 credit scores are obtained on a consumer: a Beacon 5.0 score. Beacon is a trademark of Fico, which is calculated from the consumer's Equifax credit history; a Fico Model 2 score, which is calculated from the consumer's Experian credit history; and a Classic 04 score, which is calculated from the consumer's TransUnion history. Credit bureaus also often resell Fico scores directly to consumers, often a general-purpose Fico 8 score. Previously, the credit bureaus also sold their own credit scores which they developed themselves, and which did not require payment to Fico to utilize, Equifax's Risk Score and Experian's Plus Score. However, As of 2018, these scores are no longer sold by the credit bureaus. TransUnion offers a Vantage 3.0 score for sale to consumers, which is a version of the Vantage Score credit score. In addition, many large lenders, including the major credit card issuers, have developed their own proprietary scoring models. Studies have shown scores to be predictive of risk in the underwriting of both credit and insurance. Some studies even suggest that most consumers are the beneficiaries of lower credit costs and insurance premiums due to the use of credit scores. New credit scores have been developed in the last decade by companies such as ScoreLogix, PRBC, L2C, Innovis etc., which do not use bureau data to predict creditworthiness. ScoreLogix's CES credit score uses a different set of risk factors, such as the borrower's job stability, income sufficiency, and impact of economy, in predicting credit risk, and the use of such alternative credit scores is on the rise. These new types of credit scores are often combined with Fico or bureau scores to improve the accuracy of predictions. Most lenders today use some combination of bureau scores and alternative credit scores to develop better understanding of a borrower's ability to pay. It is widely recognized that Fico is a measure of past ability to pay. New credit scores that focus more on future ability to pay are being deployed to enhance credit risk models. L2C offers an alternative credit score that uses utility payment histories to determine creditworthiness, and many lenders use this score in addition to bureau scores to make lending decisions. Many lenders use ScoreLogix's CES score in addition to bureau scores, given that the CES score incorporates job and income stability to determine whether the borrower will have the ability to repay debt in the future. It is thought that the Fico score will remain the dominant score, but it will likely be used in conjunction with other alternative credit scores that offer other pictures of risk. Usage of credit histories in employment screenings has increased from 19% in 1996 to 42% in 2006. However, credit reports for employment screening purposes do not include credit scores. 2. Americans are entitled to one free credit report in every 12-month period from each of the 3 credit bureaus, but are not entitled to receive a free credit score. The 3 credit bureaus run annualcreditreport.com, where users can get their free credit reports. Credit scores are available as an add-on feature of the report for a fee. If the consumer disputes an item on a credit report obtained using the free system, under the Fair Credit Reporting Act, FCRA, the credit bureaus have 45 days to investigate, rather than 30 days for reports obtained otherwise. Alternatively, consumers wishing to obtain their credit scores can in some cases purchase them separately from the credit bureaus or can purchase their Fico score directly from Fico. Credit scores, including Fico scores, are also made available free by subscription to one of the many credit report monitoring services available from the credit bureaus or other third parties, although to actually get the scores free from most such services, one must use a credit card to sign up for a free trial subscription of the service and then cancel before the first monthly charge. Websites like Wallet Hub, Credit Sesame and Credit Karma provide free credit scores with no credit card required, using the TransUnion Vantage Score 3.0 model. Credit.com uses the Experian Vantage Score 3.0 model. Until March 2009, holders of credit cards issued by Washington Mutual were offered a free Fico score each month through the bank's website. Chase, which took over Washington Mutual in 2008, discontinued this practice in March 2009. Chase resumed the practice of offering a free Fico score in March 2010 of select card members to the exclusion of the majority of former WAMU cardholders. Under the Fair Credit Reporting Act, a consumer is entitled to a free credit report, but not a free credit score, within 60 days of any adverse action, for example, being denied credit, or receiving substandard credit terms from a lender, taken as a result of their credit score. Under the Wall Street Reform Bill passed on the 22nd of July 2010, a consumer is entitled to receive a free credit score if they are denied a loan or insurance due to their credit score. The generic or classic Fico credit score ranges between 300 and 850. The Vantage Score 3.0 score ranges from 300 to 850. The old Vantage score was between 501 and 990. The first step to interpreting a score is to identify the source of the credit score and its use. There are numerous scores based on various scoring models sold to lenders and other users. The most common was created by Fico and is called Fico Score. Fico is a publicly traded corporation, under the ticker symbol Fico, that created the best-known and most widely used credit score model in the United States. Fico produces scoring models which are installed at and distributed by the three largest national credit repositories in the US, TransUnion, Equifax and Experian, and the two national credit repositories in Canada, TransUnion Canada and Equifax Canada. Fico controls the vast majority of the credit score market in the United States and Canada, although there are several other competing players that collectively share a very small percentage of the market. In the United States, the median generic Fico score was 723 in 2006 and 711 in 2011. The performance definition of the Fico risk score, its stated design objective, is to predict the likelihood that a consumer will go 90 days past due or worse in the subsequent 24 months after the score has been calculated. The higher the consumer's score, the less likely he or she will go 90 days past due in the subsequent 24 months after the score has been calculated. Because different lending uses, mortgage, automobiles, credit card, have different parameters, Fico algorithms are adjusted according to the predictability of that use. For this reason, a person might have a higher credit score for a revolving credit card debt when compared to a mortgage credit score taken at the same point in time. The interpretation of a credit score will vary by lender, industry, and the economy as a whole. While 640 has been a divider between prime and subprime, all considerations about score revolve around the strength of the economy in general and investors' appetites for risk in providing the funding for borrowers in particular when the score is evaluated. In 2010, the Federal Housing Administration, FHA, tightened its guidelines regarding credit scores to a small degree, but lenders who have to service and sell the securities packaged for sale into the secondary market largely raised their minimum score to 640 in the absence of strong compensating factors in the borrower's loan profile. In another housing example, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac began charging extra for loans over 75% of the value that have scores below 740. Furthermore, private mortgage insurance companies will not even provide mortgage insurance for borrowers with scores below 660. Therefore, prime is a product of the lender's appetite for the risk profile of the borrower at the time that the borrower is asking for the loan. Several factors affect individuals' credit scores. One factor is the amount an individual borrowed as compared to the amount of credit available to the individual. As an individual borrows, or leverages, more money, the individual's credit score decreases. United Arab Emirates. Credit scores in UAE are issued by ICP, a federal government-held company. Individual credit scores are three-digit numbers used to predict the likelihood of an individual making their loan and credit card payments on time, based on previous credit and payment behavior. The credit score number in UAE ranges from 300 to 900. A low score indicates a higher risk, whereas a higher score indicates a lower risk. Issuer of credit score is Al Etihad Credit Bureau. It's a public joint stock company wholly owned by the UAE federal government. As per UAE Federal Law No. 6 of 2010 concerning credit information, the company is mandated to regularly collect credit information from financial and non-financial institutions in the UAE. Al Etihad Credit Bureau aggregates and analyzes this data to calculate credit scores and produce credit reports that are made available to individuals and companies in the UAE. Credit scoring is relatively new in UAE, but all major banks started using the same, which shows its high importance. Hence,